Good morning to 2012. How are you? Like every artist who works in hip-hop and is delivering a commencement address today, I will be using my iPhone for supplementary notes. When I first received the invitation to speak today, I was really honored and to be frank, a little bit surprised, and I accepted immediately, even though I knew that it would mean leaving Doomtree's first European tour to accept and to stand here today. So last night, I flew from Paris, landed in Minneapolis, and tonight, right after the second heat of graduates, I will board a plane again to London. And I say that because that is the sexiest itinerary I have ever had. And I will be talking about it to anyone who will talk to me about it all day long. For the many of you who do not know me, I am an artist, I am a singer, a rapper, and an essayist. I'm signed to Doomtree Records. Our itineraries usually happen in passenger vans where I sit in the middle seat and we go from places like Decorah to Duluth. I'm also the CEO of that institution, which means less than it would absolutely anywhere else because we work by consensus. We don't sign contracts. Since we started, Doomtree has been friendship first, music second, and money third. End of story. Part of the rap gig often entails doing a little bit of public speaking, and I almost always say yes. I really like speaking publicly. I talk a lot to troubled youth. I talk to musicians. I talk to troubled musicians. But part of the challenge in sitting down to prepare some remarks for today was that I wasn't sure exactly what kernel of inspiration or advice might be appropriate for so varied an audience, people who I don't know personally and people whose lives will probably follow very different paths from mine and from one another. I meet a lot of people in my line of work. On tour, you might meet 100 people every day until you're dead. The more people that I meet and the more successful people that I meet, the more suspicious I am that there are any universal prescriptions for success. And that people who are really eager to give you unsolicited advice probably cannot anticipate the solutions that you will find to your own problems. My suspicion is that today, in all likelihood, you will find avenues for your successes that are unknowable to me. If you want a really good speech about how to be successful, I suggest that you Google Steve Jobs. He really killed it. He really did a nice job. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think failure is important. In modern American culture, and maybe in a lot of other places too, I think we do a lot of our failing in private. And we do a lot of our succeeding outside, in public, and whenever we can, in front of a camera. So we wake up in the morning and we make sure that our pants match our blouse and that our belt matches our shoes, and we put on a good face, and you make sure your eyelashes is curled, and you make sure that you don't look tired from the night before, and you go out and you do what you've practiced, and then you come home and you live by yourself or you live with just a few others, and it's easy there to keep secrets about loneliness or addiction or financial distress. It's easy to do that here. It might be a little harder if you were living in a house in Puerto Rican New York with 3 generations. It's harder to have a private secret coke problem when your grandmother lives upstairs and your aunt lives in the next room. But here, we do a lot of our failing privately. And I think that aversion to public failure diminishes us. And ultimately, I think that it reduces the scope of our successes. At the very beginning of my career, I accidentally won a competition that obligated me to compete for a whole year on behalf of the Minnesota Slam team. Slam is competitive poetry, for those of you who haven't checked it out. It sometimes is awesome and it sometimes really sucks. But I won this competition, and unbeknownst to me, an entire year of performance was laid out for me. One of our very first performances was at a Panera Bread. And there were like 5 people at this Panera Bread if you count the dude who was behind the counter. And I show up with my 2 friends Shane and Tim, and we're supposed to perform for an hour for these people. None of these people know that a performance is about to happen. Of the 4 people who are eating at Panera, 2 of them are very obviously engaged in a spirited discussion about the division of their assets after their impending divorce. I do not see a way to win this situation. So I don't really try. And I make a funny joke with my compatriots, the other people with whom I'm there to perform. I roll my eyes, and I take out my little script of the poem that I should have memorized, and I stand up on the little chair that they've set up as a makeshift stage, and I do my poem, and I kind of roll my eyes, and then I sit down. And to me, that's what Panera asked of me. It really wasn't asking a lot. There is no victory to be had here. Then Tim Shea, who was probably 17 or 18 years old at the time, it's his turn to go. He's got his poem memorized, he stands on the chair, and he delivers this poem about the approaching death of his father, that wonders when his father is dead, where will all his brilliance go? And I can see him trembling with the feeling. I can see him moving himself, I can see he's a very white guy, I can see his cheeks flush. And there was so much grace, there was so much life that he was living where I kind of got off the train and decided for those 3 minutes, those don't count. I'm not going to use those. I remember thinking every time I fail, I want to fail like that. Nobody in Panera cared that Tim kicked butt. But I tell this story, I don't know, I've probably told this to 10,000 people now. I hope that it is getting back to you, Tim, wherever you are. I heard that you moved to New York. That was a graceful, decent way to live, to invest yourself completely and then to lose. Looked so much more beautiful than not to have tried and to have avoided failure. And moreover, I think there's that figure skater technique, even when the stakes are higher. You know when you see the figure skater and then she falls on the Lutz or whatever and she hits her hip and she's got the ice powder on her hip and then she gets up and you know she's out of the race and she skates her heart out to finish the routine. I mean, you want to get out of your chair at your house. Oh my God, I love this lady from Russia. She's 16 and she weighs 85 pounds and she's so brave and she's so bold and her arms are spread and she hugs her coach. That is a human act to witness. That is a beautiful, graceful act of bravery. And I don't think we do it enough, man. I think we're too worried about falling and about having the ice on our hip. And you want to try the double instead of the triple. Since my first foray into the arts at Panera, I've done some losing. I've lost slam competitions. I've been completely, fairly outperformed by better writers and better actors. I've been rejected from almost every literary publication to which I have submitted. I have lost the romantic relationship that I spent the better part of 10 years trying to resuscitate. And I say all this not because I think that there's some graceful kind of turn of the narrative and that we learn so much in every failure. I don't think that. I think failure just sometimes sucks. And there's no ugly duckling swine. It's ugly duckling, that sucks. Ugly duck. But what is important is that enduring failure and in surviving failure, you become able to tolerate the prospect of failure. And in being able to tolerate the prospect of failure, you become bold enough to be appropriately ambitious when selecting your future objectives. I think that if you pursue only those goals which you know that you're really, really likely to achieve, you live like an iceberg with the vast majority of yourself undiscovered and unknowable, even to yourself. Failure is a tool. It's like pain is important because it removes our hands from burners. Failure is a tool that we use to demarcate the edges of our abilities. Go and find out empirically what you can and what you can't do. Don't leave that decision, don't leave the marking of those borders to speculation, to yours or to your friends or to your parents. Go find out. Sitting with a trusted friend who's still a friend and an important mentor to me, maybe 8 years ago. I was joining Doomtree, this collective. And he says, well, tell me what it is again. And I said, well, a Doomtree is a thing with like 7 friends, and we make all our decisions by vote, always by consensus, and we don't have any contracts, and it's like a double bottom line. We're interested in music and in money, and whenever you want to leave, you can just leave. And he said, okay, well, first, a partnership is what that's called, and that is the most notoriously unsustainable business model. What you are describing is absolutely unsustainable. And we have been absolutely unsustaining for like 10 years. Don't let people tell you, man. Don't let people guess at what you're capable of doing. For all this high talk, though, I also want to reiterate the fact that this isn't about a philosophical pledge to fail. Like, this is today. I love it when I'm on the bus and I see somebody in a nice business suit run for the bus, even though he or she knows he's probably not going to make it, because he knows that he's going to then have to stand at the shelter sweating like an idiot until the next bus comes. And it's just an awkward, uncomfortable moment. There are little failures that you can practice every day. You know, if you've got a crush on somebody who you ask them out and get your rejection on today. Apply to the dream job and make a game of it with your friends. Last one to be rejected by 10 job postings has to buy the other one lunch. Failing in small ways and in medium ways, I think, helps your dreams get bigger. And a target that you hit every time is a target that you have set way too close. Okay. So 2 small strategies to start failing. When I told my family that I wanted to be a musician, there was a lot of advice that came my way. People told me how I had to breathe, and have you tried the Alexander technique, and breathe from your middle, and you're standing wrong, and I think you should tweeze your eyebrows, and maybe you should stop wearing bras. There was a lot of unsolicited advice. For real, all of those things happened. But the best counsel that I received, one was from my dad, and one was from the philosopher Seneca. My dad said, very simply, honey, keep your overhead low. And by that he meant, the higher your monthly bills are, the more time you have to spend earning the money to pay those, which is like less time then to spend how perhaps you would prefer, developing the skills that you'd really stand to glean something from. So, again, the daily practice. Cultivate inexpensive tastes. Find a killer thrift store. There's one called Buffalo Exchange. Start drinking premium. Skip the latte. Put the sugar and the milk in yourself. It's free on the counter right behind you. You can always start liking expensive stuff later. You really can. It will be there. Seneca. This is not quite a paraphrase, but a careful excerpting from a very brief book, a collection of his essays called Life is Long, If You Know How to Live It. What might be use it? She should have written it down. Seneca. Life's most precious commodity is time. You will find no one willing to share out his money, but how many does each of us divide up his life? People are most wasteful of the one thing for which it is right to be stingy. I would have said judicious or something. Stingy is an ugly word, but that's the idea. Right now, your schedule is yours in a meaningful way, probably for the first time in a long time. If your collegiate career was anything like mine, it is a grind. It is tiring. You are pulling all-nighters. And even if you just stayed up late with friends to reinvigorate yourself for the next studying all-nighter, it's a lot of time. And I'm sure when you went through your freshman seminar courses, they told you don't work too many hours. You really need this time to study. And they were right. But now your schedule is yours. And for all the discussion that you probably hear at your parents' tables, or maybe even in your own lives about the best ways to invest our money and what's our ROI, what's our return on the investment, I don't think we very often ask ourselves of that in a temporal way. What is the return on an hour that I spend watching TV, or an hour I spend at the gym, or an hour that I spend making love, or an hour at the bar? What am I getting out of that hour? Is it well spent? Time comes at you in a pretty steady, fast pace. Are you living as fast as it is passing you? And I wouldn't be shy about saying, nah, man. There are always birthdays. Right now, there will always be going away parties. There will always be coming back parties. People are going to start having bridal showers and then baby showers and then divorces. There will be a lot of demands on your time. Don't go if you don't want to go. For real, if you have a better way to spend your time that serves you, you have one life. And no matter about how I think you should spend it, or about how these folks think you should spend it, or about how these folks think you spend it, it is your life. You only get one. So you can spend it generously if you want, but don't spend it carelessly. That is the one commodity you cannot negotiate more of. So, however you really choose it, however you choose to spend, let's say tomorrow afternoon, because tonight you stay out late, tomorrow you wake up late, but tomorrow afternoon your life starts. So however you spend it, really choose to spend it. Don't let conventions decide for you. If you are not liking this speech, find another way to spend the last 5 minutes of this speech. Choose it. Okay. I admit that when I was here as an undergrad, I sucked at failing, and I'm just starting to get good at it now. I was a hotshot. I wanted to graduate fast. I wanted to have my hand in the air first. I didn't want to answer wrong. And I liked it. You know, my undergraduate degree continues to inform my work. I strongly believe that knowledge is the clay on which the imagination acts for artists. But I had a lot of moments here at the U where I felt like I had been pulled backwards by my ponytail from like a pointillism canvas, you know, where, oh man, that is so rad, where a picture all of a sudden came into resolution that I had been unable to perceive before. Metaphysical philosophy. Okay, so I exist, but then like my height exists as a product of my existence. That's like a secondary, that is fresh. Really dug the lessons of philosophy. In Thomas Haley's class, learning that poetry could be hilarious and not in that bogus way where you have to read the footnotes to find out historically why it was hilarious. That determinists could account for why we have this sensation of free will. The account that I read, which really got me, was a description of how when you look at a stream falling down a mountain, it looks like it has agency. It's jumping and it's sparkling, but really it's just responding to the demands, of course, of gravity. So perhaps we could similarly be confused about our own free will. Mind-blowing to me. Valerie Tiberius's class said I should stop eating meat, and I did. In reading Bentham and Mills, I thought you can make a math out of ethics, and they did. In reading Kant, I thought no wonder you are still a virgin, homie. This stuff is mind-numbing. But one of the most important lessons that I learned was again in Valerie Tiberius's class. I'm being a hotshot. She's kind of sketching out the argument that's made. I can't even remember anymore by what thinker. And I thought I saw a hole. And so I write down the whole argument exactly as she's written it on the board. I go home that night. I write it out again to the best of my ability in symbolic logic. Then I ask for an office hours appointment. And I'm shaking with my enthusiasm, you know, as I'm preparing to walk into her office hours. And I say, okay, I think it doesn't entail. It doesn't entail, I mean, just creepy excited. And I show her my work, and I show her where I believe a contradiction has been made, which sinks the ship essentially in a symbolic logic proof. And she sits there, and she's real patient, and she's tolerant of my excitement. And she said, okay, well, what do you think he would say back to you? And, well, I don't know. I mean, I just came in here to blow him up. I don't know. And the phrase that she used that day, which really, really stuck with me, was charitable interpretation. The idea that by providing my argumentative opponents, or my friends, or my lovers, or my mother when she's driving me crazy, or a man who has mistreated me, or my little brother, or even myself, with a charitable interpretation, so that I'm not trying to get to right? I'm not trying to win the life. but to make the argument better, to find the better idea, to have a better resolution, that to relinquish my desperation to be correct and instead to find a solution to the problem, whether personal, academic, or vocational, that was like a grinder in my head. That was a big change. And if there were a bigger way to frame today, in the same way that Valerie Tiberius reframed what I had understood that proof to be, it would be this. I know that we're here to celebrate some long years of hard work, and it's legit, revel in it. But I think we're also here, and in maybe a more important way, to transfer power. That the diploma you will receive is a certificate of completion, but it is also a baton. It's all electives now, homie. Populate your mind. Knowledge, as I said before, I think is clay for the imagination. It is absolutely a vaccine for tedium, and I say that as a person who spends a good chunk of her adult life in the middle seat of a car. It is a periscope to better understand your small position in the world and how it might relate to others, and it's a drawbridge with which I think you can grant access to your life to others and visit theirs briefly for a moment too. For most of your life now, I think you've had other people tell you what to learn. If you want to, that's done. Indulge your fascinations. Take your curiosity very seriously. Tomorrow afternoon, watch a documentary on Vice. They're free. Buy some cheap wine and have a salon in your apartment. Check out a literary reading. Essentially, you are at the helm of your own educations now. And the way that you spend tomorrow afternoon sets the precedent for the rest of the afternoons. And the rest of the afternoons is what makes a human life. So, back to Seneca. No one will bring back the years. No one will restore yourself to you. So tomorrow, be deliberate, be brave, look foolish. And tonight, keep your overhead low, drink off the rail.